Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. About a year ago now I put out my very first DMsGuild resource. I say very first like I've put out loads, but I've only ever actually put out 2 as I record this. The first one was called the Second Tarokka Reading, and the idea of it was that it was a supplement that would help people to get a Ravenloft domain hopping campaign off the ground using the information from 5th edition's Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft as a sequel to Curse of Strahd, but to be honest, it's quite malleable. You could adapt it however you want, so it doesn't have to be a sequel to Curse of Strahd, but either way, the idea of it is that it helps people to get that going and get it started. Even though I did a demo video explaining how it works and given a few example draws, maybe it was just 1 or 2, I can't remember, which I cringe when I watch it because it's got first ever video vibes very strongly. Even though I did that video, I feel as though I haven't done the best job sort of getting across how effective it can be to getting a Ravenloft campaign started. So for somebody who wants to start one but isn't sure how to get it going, how to get hooks, how to lead players to different domains, I thought I would do another video. There's a few example draws, and then what I can do is I can talk about them and say, because we've got this domain and this domain, you could do this, and then you could do this, and this is the ally, things like that. Based on the fact that I've got more knowledge about Ravenloft now than I did a year ago, or even before that. Oh, I figured this would be handy because even though nearly 500 people have downloaded the Second Tarokka Reading since it came out, I haven't heard many stories of many people incorporating it. I've heard a few, and I've heard really great positive feedback, which is amazing. But I thought that by doing this video, this is almost like a second version of that demo draw, where hopefully it'll get people thinking, right, I get it more now, and I know how I can use it and stuff like that, or kind of hopefully get across the value a bit more. So I'll do a really quick overview of what it is for people who haven't seen me talk about it in other videos, didn't see that initial video. The Second Tarokka Reading is a supplement where the players meet a Vistana on their travels, and that person gives them a Tarokka reading. It's called the Second Tarokka Reading because it assumes that the players had the first Tarokka reading from Madame Eva as per the events of Curse of Strahd. But even if they haven't had that first Tarokka reading, you could still use it. Please don't feel like, because it's called the Second Tarokka Reading, it's not applicable unless you do Madame Eva's. And the idea is it points the players, similar to the one that Madame Eva gives in Curse of Strahd, it points the players to magic items and a fated ally spread throughout all of the domains of Dread this time. In Curse of Strahd, it's just throughout Barovia, but this time it could be in any of the domains listed in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, even the minor 1-paragraph ones near at the end. So what I've got here is I've got 2 sets of cards from my Tarokka deck. These are 40 common deck cards, and they're going to be for the magic items, and here are 14 high deck cards for the fated ally. The Curse of Strahd card reading has you do 3 magic items, well, they're not all magic items, but 3 items, a fated ally, and the 5th card is Strahd's location in the castle. The way this is done, unless you edit it, and there's tips for explanations on how you can do that, is 3 magic items and 1 fated ally, and you don't actually draw a 5th card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 3 of these cards and then draw the other one, and so that there's no sort of trickery going on, like editing the video, doing it in a way so that other good cards appear that I can talk about, I am literally going to shuffle them now in shot of this video, and I'm not going to edit it. I have a habit of any gaps or any ums and ahs or anything like that I tend to edit, so I've got to remind myself here not to edit it at all. And then I'm going to draw 3 cards, and let's stop there. And then I'm going to draw the card straight away and show you on this camera. So there's Evoker. I've taken it out with a shot, sorry. Let's do that again and make sure the cards are always in the shot so I'm not cheating. So backtrack on Evoker. And we've got Enchanter. See, the cards are still in shot. Hooded one. And Conjurer. There we go. I'll then put those cards down and I'll do a draw. These are 14 high deck cards, and the ally is Mists. Very good. Okay, I can take them out of the shot now. So it was Enchanter, Hooded one, Conjurer, Mists. And now I'm going to get the resource up on my other screen, which I should have done before starting this video. It just shows how much I'm winging this. So this is one of those videos where there's not a lot of prep. It's just kind of, I'm going to draw some cards and talk about it. And here we go. So I'm going to go to Enchanter. And for every, I should have said this in the intro, every card has 3 possible choices. And I did this for a few reasons: to avoid the risk of multiple domains appearing, and then also you've got the choice. It's a limited choice, but you've still got a choice. For instance, if it was one choice and it ended up being a domain you didn't want to run, you're kind of stuck with that. So the idea is, hopefully out of the 3 choices for every card, there's at least one that you like the look of. And 3 of Stars Enchanter, the domain choices for that are Bluet Spur, Kartakass, and Skaina? Is that how it's pronounced? Well, out of those 3, the one that appeals to me the most is Kartakass. Hooded One was the second card we drew. The choices for this one are Borka, Hazlan, and Nova Vasa. Oh, I like all 3 of those. I'm about to run Hazlan in my game, so I think I'm going to go for Hazlan. And then the third one was Conjurer, 9 of Stars, and the choices for that are Mordent, O'Dare, and the Nightmare Lands. And I think for that one, I'm probably going to go for Mordent. So that was 3 primary domains I chose: Kartakass, Hazlan, and Mordent. What I tried to do is, each of the 3 options, at least one of them is a major domain and at least one of them is a minor domain, so you've got a bit of a mix. There's no risk, I don't think, of only being minor domains as all 3 options for one card, that kind of thing. Should be a nice spread and nice variety. And then for the ally, we got Mists, and that is, Jan the Sunstar. These are the choices now: Esmeralda or Es Davenir from Curse of Strahd fame. And a bit of a wild card choice here, one of the D&D Honor Among Thieves movie characters, because they have their own stat blocks on D&D Beyond. I think it's called Thieves Gallery. For those of you who've seen the movie, Edgin, Holger, Doric, and Simon. See, I love Jan the Sunstar. I did a video all about Jan the Sunstar. It's pretty powerful though to have a vampire as an ally, and also a hindrance, I guess, having Janda as an ally, because, you know, sunlight. It limits the characters to only travel to places where there isn't sunlight, or only travel at night, stuff like that. And some of these are like a blessing and a curse, and he'd be a powerful ally, but it'd be a pain having him as an ally. Then you've got Ez. If you ran Curse of Strahd, it assumes that Ez survives. Ez, in the epilogue, says she stays in Barovia. Perhaps this card reading is enough to her, make her think, okay, I'm not going to stay in Barovia, I'm going to travel with you guys some more, or from now on, depending on what happened in Curse of Strahd. If you have players who are big fans of the D&D movie, they probably love the idea of traveling around with one of the characters from Honor Among Thieves, so that could be an option. I am going to go for Ez. So that was Kartakass, Hazlan, and Mordent for the domains, Esmeralda or Ez for the ally choice. Ez could be a great ally then to lead them to Mordent. You've got Van Richten Shop, you've got the Weathermere Foxgrove twins are there, potentially. Could be a good lead into that. Ez lost her leg to a werewolf. I don't think it's specified where, but Kartakass has werewolves, and the Dark Lord is a type of werewolf, so perhaps there's a tie in there to Ez with Harkon Lucas. Ez might usher the players to Kartakass. That could be one angle to do as well. So there you go, and then the idea is that when you run, you know, while they visit Kartakass, Hazlan, Mordent, they might learn about more domains. They might go to the Carnival, they might go to the Sea of Sorrows, they might go to other places from there, and Ez joins them on their adventures. What I'm going to do now is a second draw, so bear with me a second while I shuffle these cards again. I've just dropped one on the floor. There we go. And also shuffle the high deck cards. So back to the common deck. And what you're meant to do as well is there's the Tarokka giver in this case isn't Madame Eva. Well, if you use my lore and what I suggest in the resource, it could be Hiskoza in the modern day. Hiskoza in the old lore is some sort of male Tarokka reading giver who his Tarokka readings are bad, and it's like a bad omen, if you will, but it's kind of tied to a wider prophecy, and I'm kind of incorporating that in my own game as well. And you're meant to read out, for player A, Staff of the Magi, for player B, a Vorpal Sword, and stuff like that for each of these, by the way. You don't just literally go, card, Hazlan, or whatever. So anyway, this is another draw. I'm going to shuffle. I'm not going to edit this. You know that I'm not faking this. And there we go. And make sure they stay on the screen the whole time. So this time we have Bishop, Elementalist, Miser. Very good. And then I'll shuffle the high deck cards. And this time we get... Oh, I took them off the screen a second. I don't want to think I'm cheating, like doing a sleight of hand thing where I take them off the screen and then go, aha, it's this card. This is all live. Oh, it's Mists again. Let's skip that. Let's not do Mists again. Let's do Tempter. There we go. Okay, so it was Bishop, Elementalist, Miser, and Tempter. Go to Bishop. So this is a fresh reading now, just to stress. This would be, ignore the previous results if you were to do it a second time. I do know one person who's running 2 Ravenloft games at the moment, and they used the Second Tarokka Reading in both of those, which is amazing. This would be like them, you know, they had Kartakass, Hazlan, Mordent, and Esmeralda in their first game, and then this is a completely fresh one now. So Bishop, Richemulot, I think it is, not Richemulot, Ha-Akir, and Bluetspur again. I know there are some DMs who love the idea of Bluetspur. I love the idea of mind flayers, but I just, for some reason, Bluetspur doesn't appeal to me, and I probably wouldn't have it to my game. So for me, it would be between Richemulot and Ha-Akir. Neither of which I've run, but I do like Richemulot, so I'm going to choose that because I really like the novel Scholar of Decay, which was set there. Then we had Elementalist. Elementalist is Tempest, Valachan, and Claw. I love Valachan. I ran Valachan and it was great. The clue for this one references a overgrown ruins of a castle reclaimed by the jungle, which, if you know the information in Van Richten's guide for Valachan, is Pantara Lodge, which is the Dark Lord Jakuna's base. And then Miser, Borka again, Gastria, or Niranjan. Niranjan, I think, is a 5th edition. That's fun to say. I don't think it's one that appeared in previous versions. And I ran Niranjan just as a couple of sessions, and it was good fun. So I'm going to choose Niranjan. I don't think I've chosen the minor domain. That's the ones that are like later on in the book that don't have like a few pages each. They just literally have like a paragraph or two. So I'm going to say Miser, Niranjan, and the ally card was Tempter. And what are the choices for Tempter? Larissa Snowmain, who I've not introduced to my campaign yet, but I love. Oh, Louise Renier, the sister of Jacqueline. That is perfect for reasons I'll get to in a minute. And the third choice is one of Strahd's consorts. So if they survive the events of Curse of Strahd, if you ran Curse of Strahd, the most likely to survive is Escher, I think. Because if you're playing Curse of Strahd rules as written, and the 3 brides are guarding Strahd's tomb, so they'll probably be killed then. In my game, I gave them kind of wider roles, and they were different parts of the castle. I think I got that from Dragna Carta, that idea. And Escher was essentially forgotten about by Strahd, which is, you get a vibe from Escher that he's kind of like the least popular of the 4. And Strahd doesn't really care about him. So, and then he later on, after Strahd was defeated, he escaped Barovia and became captain of a ship on the Sea of Sorrows. So when my players went to the Sea of Sorrows, he saw Escher again, and his death was left quite ambiguous. So did he survive? Did he not? You know, will he come back into it again? Maybe. I haven't decided yet. But yes, so say, for example, in your game, Escher perished, but Valenta didn't. You could have Valenta, who is a vampire spawn. Maybe following Strahd's defeat. Oh, that's a tough one. You'd have to think of some sort of story or narrative reason that they'd want to willingly travel the characters. And a bit like the Jandor example I said earlier, it's difficult because sunlight would fry them, so quite limited on travel and things like that. So it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, no pun intended. So going back to the other guesses, so I really like Larissa Snowmain after I read the novel. God, what was it called? Dance of the Dead? I think she's a great character. Maybe have her as a druid, which I think is what's suggested in Van Richten's guide, or maybe even an archdruid, have her more powerful. But because we drew Richemulot, I think we're going to have to choose Louise Renier. Now, in the novel Scholar of Decay, Louise is Jacqueline's sister, Jacqueline Renier, the Dark Lord, and she's trying to usurp control over her. I think in 5th edition, there's been a mini retcon that kind of suggests that Louise may not be a were-rat, like Jacqueline is, and she may not be evil necessarily. So if that's your choice, I guess. If it were me, I'd probably run it close to the novel, and maybe she's been exiled from Richemulot and she's in somewhere like Demonlieu, could be good, so in the sewers there. In fact, in the clue, I think I say, a rat or a person, maybe both. A woman in Demonlieu who wishes to reverse her fortunes and depose her cruel twin sister. So, okay, so my clue kind of sets that up. But, it could be that maybe she's not aware at yet. Maybe she's a bit more sympathetic. Maybe she's not evil, unlike how the novel and maybe the old law paints her to be. So for that draw, that was Richemulot, Valachan, Niranjan, Louise Renier. So you got the tie with Richemulot and Louise Renier there, definitely. That worked really well. And then Valachan and Niranjan are just 2 places they can go to. Valachan with the Trial of Hearts, which I did a whole video about it, talking about how I ran it out of Ravenloft Mist Hunters, and it was a lot of fun. And then Niranjan, I used the information that PhD&D, Dr. Powers, recommended for that one, for those of you familiar with his videos, and it worked really, really well. And there we have it, 2 more draws. Hopefully it gives you some ideas and some inspiration. One thing I should say as well is, I'm a lover of chaos. I'm a lover of doing the Curse of Strahd draw, not fully random. That's my other DM's Guild resource where I kind of customize it so it's kind of partially random, partially stacked and rigged. But I do like an element of randomness, and when I did the Second Tarokka Reading for my players, back then before I made it available to other DMs as a DM's Guild resource, I just had one clue per card, but I knew which domains I wanted to include and stuff like that. If you don't like the idea of it doing it random in front of your players, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. If you're reading through it and you go, yes, I definitely want this domain, this domain, this domain, and this ally, you could stack the deck like a lot of people do with the Curse of Strahd Tarokka Reading, have the cards laid out ready and turn them over and say, aha, it just so happens to be Louise Renier as the ally, for example. And you can sort of do it from there. So don't feel like you have to do it random. Doing it random is risky, it's scary. It could go, I don't want to say go horribly wrong, that's the whole reason I've done 3 options, but it could end up with a couple of choices like say for a couple of domains you really didn't want to run, and one of the cards is all 3 of those domains, then I appreciate that might not be too great. But I hope that helps to inspire and encourage people to use it. If you don't even plan to use it, there's a lot of information there about different domains. All the ally suggestions I suggest, how they can fit into the story, their stat blocks, things like that. And there's more information about how tying it to the whole campaign. Even if you don't actually run the Second Tarokka Reading as a Second Tarokka Reading, there might be information that helps you. As I record this, it's still free, pay what you want, but in the coming weeks I'm going to change it. Its value is $10, or at least how I feel about it. I might reduce that down to $8 or $7.99, something like that, and then it'll be paid. So if you do want to get it, and you want to get it for free or at a lower price than $8-ish, now's the time to grab it. If you watch this later on, it might already be paid. I like to think it's worth the money. If you're really wanting to get a Ravenloft campaign started, then hopefully $8 is a very small amount in the numbers of sessions and weeks and months of years of the campaign. In the grand scheme of things, hopefully it's worth the money. And that's it for this one. I've forgotten what upcoming Ravenloft videos I want to do. I know I've talked about it a few times now, but I want to do more NPC videos. People like Gondogal and Alnick Ray. I want to do the titular man himself, Van Richten. I might do that as a Curse of Strahd video, but well, there's overlap with Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft there, because obviously he appears in both. And I'm drawing a blank on what else. So I guess we'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.